Hey there, I actually want to talk about this. This is a topic I actually genuinely want to talk about. It's Dark and Darker being removed from Steam following a dispute with Nexon. So, I only just about found out from a recent Asmongold video, which I haven't caught up on because I'm still 3 months behind on those. But I'm getting there. But apparently Dark and Darker is in trouble, and this was the one game on Steam that I was legitimately actually looking forward to. Like, it's been a long time since I really cared that much about games. Sure, there's games I like and there's games I enjoy playing, but like, actually looking forward to playing, this was the one. Not Terraria, no, just Dark and Darker for me, but maybe Terraria for others. So I wanted to read through this and try to go through it, because it's the first time reading the article, so I'm going to be a little bit rusty here, but I hope that there's still a chance that they can come back from this, but let's find out. Developer Iron Mace has since responded saying Nexon has provided no actual evidence of wrongdoing. So, who is Nexon? Are they the creators of Dark and Darker? Do you see what I mean? I need to do my research on this. Nexon. Nexon official site. Yeah, who made Dark and Darker? That's what we need to know. Dark and Darker creators. If this doesn't bring up the information I need, which I'm assuming Nexon is the one that's arguing with these guys. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's pull this over. Dark and Darker removed from Steam following a dispute with Nexon. So Nexon must have created the Nexon made P3. Right, you're right. Okay. And Iron Mace made Dark and Darker. So now we know that much. So these guys are the dudes that are basically suing, or at least removing DMCA in Dark and Darker. So Iron Mace, Nexon, the publisher of games like the Maple Story series. Oh, that's pretty big actually, Maple Story series. It's not a small company though. Has allegedly hit Dark and Darker creators Iron Mace Games. The Iron Mace Games was for Dark and Darker, with a cease and desist letter, which resulted in the game being pulled, for now, from Steam. Let's hope it stays for now, but not forever. They claimed Iron Mace stole art and assets from the P3 project. I've never heard of P3, but I guess maybe this will tell us a bit more about it. Dark and Darker, the upcoming medieval extraction shooter. That's a really... Shooter? Yeah, maybe? You think medieval and shooter don't necessarily go together, but they saw more than 100,000 concurrent players during its most recent playtest, and I've yet to playtest this game. I'm looking forward to doing it. Has been pulled from Steam following a DMCA takedown and cease and desist notice issued by Korean gaming giant Nexon. It's a shame because I like the Koreans, because most of the stuff I watch on Netflix is now Korean TV shows and such than actually the Western content, because I feel like the Korean content's better. It's the latest escalation in a legal battle between indie developer Iron Mace and Nexon over the origins of Dark and Darker. Nexon claims that Dark and Darker uses stolen codes and assets from a similar-looking Nexon project called P3 that was eventually scrapped, a project many members of Iron Mace formerly worked on. Iron Mace denies those accusations and has insisted that Dark and Darker was built from the ground up. So it's saying a project that many members of Iron Mace formerly worked on. So these are Iron Mace, what is it, a relatively new company that's made up of, as Flazer said just in the chat, I've read that now, former employees of Nexon. Right. Seems like a bit of salt going on here. Nexon is, in its takedown notice, cites that Iron Mace is making unauthorized use of Nexon trade secrets and copyrighted material, and that based on its own investigation is using source codes and art resources, build files, and other company intellectual property. I mean, that I could probably believe, because you work with what you know, right? And if they were working in Nexon previously with what they knew there, then they're probably going to take that forward into the next project. How do you avoid that? You just deliberately try not to use anything? I don't know how much of this weight holds. If it's actual legit assets that belong to Nexon and they've just plonked it into their own game, then yeah. But if it's similar styles, because if that's what they learned from Nexon, then I don't think that holds weight. The notice also takes aim at a former Nexon employee and the former team lead for Project P3, who now works for Iron Mace. Oh, he was the lead for P3. So they're definitely salty, because that was the guy that's essentially heading their new game. And he's taken all of that knowledge and he's put it into this Dark and Darker by the looks of it. Nexon confirms that the employee in question was disciplined and terminated for storing code and assets related to P3 on a personal server in July 2021. His last day at the job, he like brings in a freaking like SSD drive or something and then just plugs it into the computer and downloads as much as possible. And was later sued by Nexon over the issue. That lawsuit is still ongoing. I bet it is, because most lawsuits go on for ages. According to Nexon, the employee in question recruited various P3 team members to leave Nexon and create a similar game. Yes, this does sound completely believable, and I fully believe he probably did that. I don't know if that's something you can get in trouble for. I'm sure there might be some sort of legal law term for that, where you poach people from a team, almost like encouraging other people to leave a company so you can take it and make your own. But I'm not sure what that is. Okay. Let's see, where was I? Which turned out to be Dark and Darker. According to Nexon, 10 out of the 23 employees working on P3 left Nexon and are believed to be now working at Iron Mace. So basically half of the team. Iron Mace founder Terrence Park was aware of the terminated employees' actions, according to Nexon, and therefore benefited from the misappropriation of Nexon trade secrets. See, the thing is you want a bigger team, but if they've already had the experience of working on this game, you can probably get by and finish off Dark and Darker with only about 10 or so employees. I'm not an expert when it comes to the indie game development and such, and medium indie game development, but I would logically think that these guys have been working on the game for a while. They got like a similar sort of vibe. They've already like desensitized themselves. They've learned how to sort of create assets within the work and make the world work. So you don't have to take everyone to make the game work. You see what I mean? Like if you took like 10 sailors out of 23 to vessel a crew, you know, like to crew a vessel, and you could probably do it if they're 10 experienced sailors rather than 10 landlubbers that have never sailed the seas before. So that's kind of almost tactical what he's done here. It's almost like he wanted to get fired or something. You know what I mean? Like it's almost, this is all deliberately planned. Seems like seems like a movie could be made out of this almost. Nexon states that it is impossible for Iron Mace to have developed a Darker and Darker in such a short time frame without using Nexon's trade secrets and confidential information. Yeah, like, as much as I don't want Dark and Darker to be in trouble here because I want that game to come out, it really does seem like this was almost planned, and states that the similarities between the two games are so striking that they cannot be reasonably explained through independent development. This is partly because Nexon claims that P3 was never disclosed to a third party, and that prior to Dark and Darker, no other game had the same concept, genre, and plot as the P3 game. In a lengthy statement on Reddit and the official Dark and Darker Discord server, Iron Mace attempted to refute Nexon's various arguments, going so far as to say using stolen assets or code from Project P3 would have been a hindrance rather than a benefit to the development of Dark and Darker, as many of Iron Mace's developers worked on P3 and knew how haphazardly the project was built. Okay, so this is their argument essentially, that we don't want to use your assets because they're jank. Like, why would I build this shed from your crappy materials? I know that it's just going to fall apart if I do that. That's essentially what they're trying to say here, I guess. Let's have a little look at this screeny. Use your keyboard. So that's I've never got to play the game, but it's good. Yeah, it's got this old sort of Dungeons and Dragons kind of feel to it. My goodness. I kind of really want to solo this game, but apparently it's supposed to be way more designed for multiplayer gameplay. I'm not even sure if you can solo it unless you want to have a near impossible time. Dark and Darker was slated to receive its final playtest in April prior to Nexon's takedown notice. You can watch this screenshot and pretend you're stuck at 0 FPS. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, sure. I can live the game if it's not working very well. Yeah, it's supposed to be a PvP game, like a multiplayer. Iron Mace, it still could be great though. You can play it with viewers or a proper group. Iron Mace refutes Nexon's argument that Dark and Darker couldn't have been built from the ground up in such a short period of time and therefore must have used aspects In this statement, Iron Mace had strong words for Nexon. Just because it may be difficult for a large bureaucratic company such as Nexon to develop games in such a short time frame does not mean it is impossible for another studio, big, small, new or old, to develop games quickly, Iron Mace's statement reads. Oh, shot fired. The indie developer explained that the vast majority of Dark and Darker was built using 3D assets bought from the Unreal Marketplace, which helps to explain the studio's ability to create a demo version of Dark and Darker within 10 months of the studio's founding. iMace says that its videos of various milestone builds that show the project over the course of development, and it will be sharing the logs and file lists from its Git version control repository to further show its work. Right. Nexon claims that Dark and Darker features numerous identical file names to P3. Well, that's an argument. If they can prove that, then yeah, that's harder to sort of defend. Another point that Iron Mace refutes. Out of the resources listed by Nexon, Iron Mace says 950 share a name due to them being identical store-bought assets or plugins for the Unreal Engine. Well, if it's on the free market, then that's fair enough, I guess. Iron Mace says the remaining identical file names can be chalked up to generic file naming conventions and the fact that both titles are the first-person fantasy games. This is gonna be a tricky one. Honestly, if this goes to court, it seems like a really difficult one to sort of prove one way or the other. Both sides seem to have a good argument. Iron Mace's statement also attempts to clarify the actions of the employee mentioned in Nexon's takedown notice, stating that the employee was authorized to use the personal server for over a year between 2020 and 2021. The employee was later asked to stop using the personal server, but continued to do so due to the uncertainty surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. Iron Mace argues that since all company machines are monitored, that the usage of the personal servers must have been known to Nexon. But the employee did not receive any kind of warning, so I guess that's okay. The employee was eventually fired, with Iron Mace claiming that action was only taken after Nexon became aware of the employee's intention to leave the company. Yeah, there's some like, oof, there is some, oh, it's salty for sure. Iron Mace says the employee has been fully cooperative during the ongoing investigation, has been as accommodating as possible to speed up the process and prove no wrongdoing. The similarity of the two projects is a key reason for Nexon's attempted takedown, which notes the game's dungeon setting. Use of torches and various character classes like Barbarian, Ranger, and Wizard are identical. Iron Mace, however, states that the Dark and Darker is purposely traditional and generic. It refutes Nexon's claim no third parties outside of Nexon knew about P3 by pointing out that Nexon announced P3 as part of the public media showcase in 2021. And that there are numerous articles about their project online. Yeah, well, and if they've got like a case of Nexon saying that their project is being worked on, and that, you know, it has this stuff and this stuff, that stuff, Iron Mace definitely has something to argue there. Iron Mace has previously said that Nexon cannot copyright a genre, and in its latest statement, wait. Maybe, I don't know if you can copyright. Didn't Shadow Warrior, was it Shadow Warrior? I never got to play those games. Copyright the Nemesis system. I don't know if that counts as a genre of game, the Nemesis system, but I think that legit got like patented. Something like that. Anyway, where was I? I keep losing where I was. I should do this. There we go. And that there are numerous articles that aren't by. In its latest statement, claims that Nexon's copyrighted related to P3 were only registered in the last month. Dark and Darker's genre, concepts, and characters, Iron Mace argues, can be found in many fantasy RPGs, including tabletop games like Dungeons & Dragons. The basic framework for Dark and Darker: a party of adventurers enters a dungeon to battle monsters and find treasure, is so common, according to Iron Mace, that the developer had ChatGPT come up with a description of a PvP-focused dungeon crawler, and the answer it gave was extremely similar to Dark and Darker and P3. Iron Mace concludes its statement by saying Nexon's evidence is based purely on circumstantial claims and that Nexon's actions have negatively impacted the studio's ability to do business. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. I don't know whether they're going to be able to sue you or stop you, but they're trying to slow you down. Because they're still working on this P3 game, I assume. I don't know if they said in the article that they've given up on the P3 game, because they obviously lost half their people working on it. So if they are still working on it, they obviously don't want Darker and Darker to come out, because then that's competition to it. The developer is requesting that Nexon renounce their baseless claims. If they would like to complete on merit, we welcome Nexon to promptly accommodate the comparison of source code, custom assets, and design documents with the police to quickly and decisively put an end to this matter. Prior to Nexon's takedown, Dark and Darker was slated to receive a final playtest in April. Oh! April, it's so close. We could have been playing it. After which the title was scheduled to launch on Steam in early access before the end of the year. Future playtests and the game's eventual release are now up in the air until further notice. What do you guys think about this? It does seem like, yeah, they're trying to stop them or slow them down. It's a very much hearsay kind of argument. There's definitely points and believability to it, but actual proof is hard, other than the assets having the same name. But you can also make the argument that a lot of those assets are those names because those are the names that came from the actual store itself. So they bought the store assets for both games, so they would have those names. It's only if you had something really specific that would be like impossible to duplicate that both games had, then that would be really obvious. But it doesn't seem like it would be easy for Nexon to win, but it does seem like they could have a standing point to actually slow down Iron Mace, which is obviously what they're doing at the moment and continue to do, which I'm not happy about because I want to play Dark and Darker. Do you want to play Darker and Darker? Let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. I'll see you later.